Welcome, everybody, to our interview with Mayor Mitch Roth. Conducting our interviews tonight are Chuck Flaherty and Christine Kubat. First, I'd like to do a brief introduction of who HuliPAC is. We are a group of grassroots community advocates volunteering our time to HuliPAC. Many of us have witnessed during oral testimonies the problems of being the minority voice, observing seated representatives voting against the INA or the majority of testifiers. The majority rule currently allows the continuation of colonial structures, corporate rules, and methods over Ike Hawaii for INA and its people to thrive. We must collectively understand the individual power we carry as Hawaii Island residents by getting involved. All right, our first question. Is that Chuck or Christine who's asking the first question? I think Chuck.
I think your mic's off.
Chuck, I think you're muted. Chuck, we can't hear you.
So maybe I'll go ahead while we sort that out.
Okay.
I apologize. Yes.
I
Go
got
ahead.
it. Okay.
So the first question is Hawaiian rights and cultural issues. The U.S. Congress passed a joint resolution signed by President Clinton apologizing to Native Hawaiians on the behalf of the people of the United States for the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii on January 17th, 1893, with the participation of agents and citizens of the United States and deprivation of the rights of the Native Hawaiians to self-determination. That's a quote from the apology resolution. In what ways does your administration recognize the rights of Native Hawaiians and compensate for the wrongs committed against them?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been focusing on sustainability through our administration. And to me, that means a lot of things. The main thing it means is making sure that our kids are able to raise their kids here and their kids are able to raise their kids. And we've really focused in on Hawaiians because there's more Hawaiians living outside of the state than inside of the state at this time. And as we lose our Hawaiians, we lose our culture. And as we lose our culture, we lose who we are. So when you focus on sustainability, you look at the things that are important to the people of Hawaii, the INA, making sure that we're taking care of our lands, making sure that we're helping Hawaiians succeed, making sure that they're able to stay. One of the things that we've done in the last year is we actually brought a group of people together, some charter school students, some students from Kamehameha schools, some thought leaders from across the state to ask the question, what is it that we need to do that not only allows our Hawaiians to stay, but makes them want to stay, and so we don't keep on losing them. Had a fabulous discussion about those kinds of things. In our research and development department, we've actually created an Indigenous data sciences where we have two young Hawaiian women who are actually helping people in our county learn about Hawaiian culture, learn the language, learn about the history. And so I think the very first part of that is educating ourselves. And so lots of different things in this area that we've been working on. We've also been reaching out to Hawaiians to ask that question. I ask that question quite often. What is it that we need to do to make sure that we're able to allow our Hawaiians to stay here and make them want to stay here? And I've probably asked over 100 people that question. I've had that conversation with many people, a lot of different answers. I know you want me to stay to 3 minutes, so I'll stick to that right now.
Thank you very much.
Next question, Christine.
Well, you get to talk about it a little bit more because the next question is kind of a follow-up. So what is your understanding of the term traditional and customary practices? And just to let you know, we're wanting you to talk about that as a legal term. So that's actually taken from the state constitution. And yeah, what is your understanding of the term traditional and customary practices?
So, I guess in the legal term, there's various things that we can talk about. We can talk about access. And so access is very important, making sure that Hawaiians have access to their lineal grounds, making sure that we're taking care of iwi kupuna, making sure that we're not desecrating the land, making sure that they're able to practice a lot of their practices, whether that be things like different fishing, going to different areas to fish. So I know in the national park, for example, there's places where we allow Hawaiians to do that. Interesting that you're asking this question today, because yesterday I was in Kona meeting with some lineal descendants from Koloko, and one of the things that they were looking at is taking that park for what Congress has actually said it's supposed to be, a place where Hawaiians can learn about Hawaiian culture, where they can practice their traditional Hawaiian cultural values. They actually started to build I'm losing my words right now, but a traditional Hawaiian hut, for better words. I'll come back to me here in a second. And this was a couple of park directors before, superintendents. They started building it, and then they had a different park director come in and told them, you got to take this down. And you're not able to do these kinds of things over here. They have a new director. The new director is willing to meet with the community. And so one of the things that we're doing right now in this area is we're bringing lineal descendants, cultural groups, Hawaiian cultural groups together with the parks. And the idea that we're working on is, let's memorialize these agreements so that, you know, we're able to put the halaus up, and we're able to practice the traditional rights. We're able to make sure that when we're taking care of our ponds in that park, we're taking care of them in a traditional Hawaiian way, whether that's stacking up rocks versus building a straight wall, which is often done on the mainland, and which was done. Also making sure that we're rectifying the wrongs of the past. In that park, there was Iwi Kapuna, and they just bulldozed that down. How do we do that? And part of that, I know you guys talk about Ho'oponopono. To me, I use the word Ho'oponopono, but I also use the word restorative justice, which is another form of Ho'oponopono. It's bringing people together. And so we're also bringing people together to fix the wrongs of the past and move on, and actually make sure that the lineal descendants are able to make that park what it was designed to be, a place where Hawaiians can gather to practice their traditional Hawaiian customs and learn and send those messages down to their kids. Because if our Hawaiian kids don't understand why it's important to be Hawaiian, they're more likely to leave Hawaii than stay here. Sorry, that was more than 3 minutes.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
So, Mayor, you're now almost 4 years into your job. So what achievement is it that which you're most proud?
You know, we have several things that we're very, very proud of. You know, one of the things in sustainability for us is to make sure that our kids have a place to live, an affordable housing that they can live in. And when we came in, the affordable housing pipeline, those houses that will be built in the future, was somewhere around 1,243. We have about 8,200 affordable housing units in the pipeline. And I say affordable, that's affordable under HUD standards. I like to think more of those housing units as being workforce housing, housing that our kids can live in, our families can live in, our Hawaiian people have a place where they can stay and work. So bringing that number up was one thing. The other thing we know is that if they can't afford to build, part of the expenses is the time you wait. And so we changed our permitting system from the worst in the country, according to UHERO, to the best in the state. So we have the quickest times, we do more than other places, and we do them a lot more efficiently. We're very excited and proud about our infrastructure. If you look at the infrastructure, we're doing a lot of work on our infrastructure, our roads. We've doubled the amount of roads that we've been paved in our administration. And that's kind of a big deal. We started taking care of a lot of our parks and a lot of the things that have been breaking down. Unfortunately, those things are very, very expensive. I think some other things, looking at how we handle ourselves during COVID, during an emergency, I think we did quite well. If you take a look at the Aloha United Way ALICE study, which talks about asset limited, income constrained, and employed, the working poor, we were the only county to actually reduce the number of people living in ALICE. So we came out of COVID as the most successful island dealing with COVID. I think about Mauna Loa, and when Mauna Loa went off, that was a big thing, got worldwide attention. We did a lot better job of communicating with our community, talking to people that we usually didn't. But I think one of the greatest things that happened there is we found a problem and we were able to quickly solve that problem. The problem was we had thousands of people driving on the Daniel K. Inouye Highway, 50 miles, 60 miles an hour, kids getting out of the car, watching the lava, very dangerous situation. We reached out to our partners, which was the military, which was DLNR, which was our parks and DOT, and we quickly created a road where people can safely view the lava. Those are some of the things I see. My time is up again. Sorry, I'm kind of long-winded. We have a lot to be very proud of.
We do have a lot to cover, so yeah, let's try to keep it to 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
All right, next question.
Okay, now we're going to move on to third-party energy and budget-saving solar projects on county property. So, within our network, we're always over here talking about how things could be, how we could get more energy, how we could have solar projects, what are ways to make this cost less. And we're very much, within our circles, aware about this, things that are being done with performance contracts. So there's a state law that allows for third-party energy and budget savings. Contractor identifies, designs, and installs the energy conservation measures, guarantees their performance. Financing can be arranged by the contractor, so that's no money coming from the county or a third party. Performance contracts can also incorporate utility incentives or government subsidies that can reduce the cost of the project. Throughout the state, we've seen these kind of projects, but there's nothing like that happening on our island, and we want to know why and if that would change if you were reelected.
Well, first off, there is things happening in that realm. We've been working with a group called Sustainability Partners, the same group that is working with the state. We have contracts, and actually at this moment, we have EV charging stations on our island that they will be installing hopefully soon. We're going through the processes, and I've been going through this for the last couple of years. We're improving our buses, so they're working on bringing in buses. We're improving our solar sheds. So there's actually quite a bit of that we're working on in these performance contracts. And they've been signed, and there's more that we're looking at right now.
So when you say there's more that you're looking at, are any of those related to wastewater or water purification, or?
So that's an interesting question, because we've talked to people about doing that for wastewater. We've currently designed our Hilo wastewater facility, and that is out to bid. So at this point, it's may not be for the Hilo wastewater. We are examining whether we can do it for other places. There is a possibility. We've been having some amazing conversations in this area.
Okay, so we should expect more of the same if you're reelected.
As long as it works out the way it's supposed to.
Okay.
And I hope you
You know, just,
understand
just as
that.
a follow-up, on that question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, are you, is your administration going to be committing to water recycling and water sustainability projects, specifically, well, I should say especially at the wastewater treatment plants?
Yes. I mean, we actually have plans that are, I believe, in the design phase for Kealakekee for moving it from R2 to R1, and then using that water on things like the West Hawaii. We're looking at building another park over there.
Right. Are you also interested, looking at the potential for revenue generation with recycled water and generating some revenue from that?
It is something that we have looked at. The question is the amount of water that we have and the cost it takes to bring it over to someplace like Kuanaiki. I've actually had conversations with people at Kuanaiki, thinking that we can maybe use it for their golf courses. They're actually more interested in using it for the landscaping. So those conversations are conversations that we have definitely, we're definitely looking at.
Yeah, so they're using, okay, never mind. So following up on food self-sufficiency. So Hawaii is one global crisis away from starvation because it imports most of its food. There's been a lot of talk about creating food self-sufficiency and food sovereignty, but little has been done to support existing local farmers and the development of future farmers. What will your administration do to grow the local agricultural economy and increase our island's food self-sufficiency?
Yeah, so we actually we got a partial grant. We got 500,000. We were hoping for the $100 million in the Build Back Better grants. Unfortunately, we made it to the top 60. We got the 500,000. With those $500,000, we've been working on different plans, including helping the university extension bring in a couple of people to work. We, as a county, we don't have a county office of agriculture. We do have an agriculture officer who's working with people. We've been working with people on grants and things like that. We've been actually looking at this problem, and there's a lot to this problem that kind of comes back to housing. And so by being able to have more workforce housing, some of these farms are able to have people work. We've talked to kids. Unfortunately, a lot of kids don't want to go into farming. And especially they don't want to do it in a traditional manner. In Honokaa area, Humenau, there's a group that we're leasing land to grow ulu. And we've been to different groups trying to work with them and see how we can assist. One of the things that comes back a lot that we're kind of looking at is a lot of the farmers, to make money, they need to send their product off island. And because they can't do it economically, what happens is they end up going out of farming. So we've lost a lot of farms because our farmers haven't been able to ship their foods to the neighbor islands. And so we're looking at how we can maybe get funding for them to compensate some of the shipping costs so they can send it off island.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that puts me on track with the solid waste questions. Do you support waste to energy strategies?
I do. And we're looking at some waste to energy solutions, but they may not be the solutions that you're thinking. And let me just explain. Probably one of the biggest ones that we have right now is we have the Hilo landfill that has been covered up. That landfill is in the EPA range of acceptable, but it spews out methane on a daily basis. And so we're looking at taking that methane, turning that methane into ammonia and then into hydrogen to fuel our hydrogen buses. We have hydrogen buses that are coming online. And so that's one of the things we're looking. We're also looking at doing something very similar at the wastewater plants, because there's sludge there that is also putting methane out into the air. That technology is showing that that's a possibility of doing that. We should have an RFP coming up. We did an RFI this last year on different methods of creating energy, and we left out burning of energy. Specifically left that off the table. So we're waiting to see what comes back. There's a lot of new technology that is coming out, and we're very interested in seeing how we can take what's we have here and turn it into something positive versus a negative.
Are you supporting biomass burning similar to what's being proposed at Uhonua or other types of biomass?
So one of the things that was specifically left off of the RFP, it was actually said it has to be outside of that. So
thank you. Next question.
Okay, and a follow-up question to that. What can the county do to divert waste from what more can the county do to divert waste from the landfill?
Great question. And I know every time I see you, we're usually out of function, and there's oftentimes at those functions, I think the last one was our sustainability summit, and you brought to my attention that the hotel was using plastic cups versus recyclable cups. I think there may be some legislation that can be done at the council that makes some of these things happen. I know the same thing. We talk at these functions, there's always people throwing away their lunches and stuff. And there's some Department of Health rules that are out there that prevent the county from legally doing, taking those things and diverting them. There is ideas of creating a sort station. That was actually a plan that was put forward and actually died before we came into office because of just some decisions that were made. And once we got into office, we were looking at that. It could not be done for the price that was bargained for at that time.
Okay, so we're going to move on from there. Chuck, back to you.
So, Mayor Roth, you've mentioned housing on several occasions. So on the housing issue, given that the economics law of supply and demand and the fact that there's essentially unlimited demand for housing, and it's really impossible to build our way out of the current affordable housing crisis because of that unlimited demand, would you be willing to support rent control legislation for the county?
I haven't thought about that. We are kind of doing something like that, and we're working together with council on a short-term vacation rental bill. It doesn't say you have to rent at this price, but we are trying to close up a lot of the loopholes that are currently in the law that prevent some of those houses from being on board for renting. And it's also driving up a lot of the costs for our residents here in Hawaii.
Right. I think specifically what I was thinking of was the rent control that you see, like, for instance, in San Francisco and in New York, where you have really high rent and markets that are increasing in rent at a very rapid rate, whereby property owners would be limited in the amount that they could raise rent on tenants on an annual basis. So have you thought about that particular aspect of rent control?
I have not, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Do you think it's something that you might entertain in your next term?
It's something I take the craziest ideas and I entertain a lot of different ideas and look them through. Sometimes I think I have a way forward with something and to learn that it's not good. And sometimes I hear things and go, that's crazy, to find out that was a great idea.
Okay. So I'm following up to that on the housing issue. Earlier this year, the hedge fund Control of American Homes Act was introduced in Congress, and that would force large investors to offload 10% of their single-family homes inventory on an annual basis. And other state and local governments are finding ways to give families seeking a home more competitive advantages over investors who are large investors making cash only offers. Would you be willing to introduce legislation to assist in the control on the number of investor-owned single-family residents in Hawaii, and or that would provide the ability for families to be more competitive in that market? Be willing to explore what's being done in other jurisdictions, in other words, in other cities and counties, to address this issue where you have large investors purchasing large segments of the available single-family home inventory.
So I'd be willing to look at it. I don't know if that's constitutionally, and it may be the way that I'm understanding you say this, but what we do is, like these people who have 2, 3, 4 homes or second home basically and up, if they're over a certain value, they get taxed at a higher tax level.
Mm-hmm.
So he specifically, though, was talking about like hedge funds and investor type. This is not somebody that owns a number of homes. These are companies that are going around buying homes and taking them off the market for individuals.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that. And part of what's happening with the closing the loophole with these homes, generally these homes are being used, in my mind, for short-term vacation rentals. Is that kind of your understanding?
There's a whole scheme where people actually park money in real estate and they buy it. Nope, they don't rent it. Nobody uses it ever. It's just, instead of putting their money in a bank where they get a limited return, they basically put it into real estate because, with a lot of speculation and the prices go up, they make more money.
Yeah, I would have to look at that, especially if they're not using their homes at all. I would think that these people are buying homes, and I know one of the things that a lot of people do is they'll rent homes. And if they're renting, I know some people that have many homes here and they try to make them affordable rentals. And so they work together with like Hope Services. So how would that affect them? So the devil is always in the details, but it's something that I'd be willing to learn a little bit more about.
Okay. And one final housing question. Community land trusts are private, nonprofit organizations that own land on behalf of a community. And they promote housing affordability and sustainable development and mitigate historical inequities in home ownership and wealth building. If reelected, would your administration support the development of community land trusts in our county, enabling more affordable housing? And basically, it's a situation where the land is owned by a nonprofit organization and the homes are purchased by the individuals. And so the individuals are able to establish equity. In many ways, it's like similar to what Kamehameha Schools and the Department of Hawaiian Homes does in their business model. Would you consider that?
So my belief is that we have land trusts where they're doing that. Okay. And I don't know if you've talked to Pete Hoffman, who's now the chair at Hope Services. He's been bringing this up for years. And I think, one of the things that we've done, another thing to be proud about, is we've taken funds and we put them to affordable housing program. You saw the one with Monago where they weren't able to do that. But I'm pretty sure that we actually gave funds to help build a couple of those land trust homes. And so, I think we're already doing it.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, so my turn. I'm up next. there was this whole thing that happened around the MOU that the county signed to commit Hawaii County to making a transition, a deep transition to a hydrogen economy. And a lot of us were just like, whoa, how did that happen? There was no community outreach. The issue wasn't brought before the county council where the community would be able to come and testify. You know, a lot of us were really caught off guard by that. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity, and you can take as long as you like if it takes more than 3 minutes.
Problem. So I believe it did come before the council. Basically, I was going to a meeting. We received funds to be part of a hydrogen mentor-mentee relationship. And so we were working with NAMIE, we still are, we're working with NAMIE Japan and Lancaster, California. And the idea is to look at different strategies in how hydrogen can be affordable and become a reality. And so I think a lot of people jumped off and said it was something different. But the agreement that we have is that we would study the uses of hydrogen. Lancaster is actually doing a lot with their buildings. And you know, we have a hydrogen bus. We have our first hydrogen bus. We're looking at getting some more hydrogen buses. NAMIE Japan is actually the first hydrogen community in the world. They were in Fukushima where the nuclear disaster happened. And so the whole idea with this was we wanted to be able to have discussions. We created an alliance. I said, do we need to do anything? And, you know, to do this, and talking to Corp Council, they said, no, but it may be better just to go in front of council because we wanted to sign, you know, just a agreement that that's what we're going to do. And what it turned out to be at council is people thought that we were creating this hydrogen society where everything is going to be hydrogen, where in fact, the idea was to look at possibilities.
Okay, so this is going to be fun. We're going to get into it a little bit here, Mitch.
Good.
Yeah, it went before the county council when you were already over there in California getting ready to sign. And there were dispatches going back and forth, like on the phone and texts and like, okay, is the county going to approve or not approve? And well, the message was like, well, Mitch is going to sign it anyway, even if he doesn't get approval from the county. And so, you know, when people got into it a little more deeply and looked at it, looked at the funding that came, at the commitments, no, the idea was that well before embarking on that path or making that agreement or deciding to become a part of that MOU, that there would be some outreach to the community and that there would be hearings before the county council, not when you're already over there in California getting ready to sign, but ahead of time. And then I actually read the MOU myself, and the language in it was basically that you, on behalf of the county, were committing Hawaii County to make a transition. I'm pretty sure the word deep was in there. I should probably Google it as we're talking, but to make a transition to a hydrogen economy. And, you know, maybe somebody had the poor choice of words, but that's what the MOU said. It didn't say, well, this is just a kind of a thing and we're going to learn from each other and see where it goes. It actually said that you, Mitch Roth, were signing Hawaii County up to make a transition to a hydrogen economy. And a hydrogen economy is a very serious thing. I mean, it basically says that's how we're getting our energy is from hydrogen.
Well, we want to get energy from hydrogen. And the way that came about is we were going to meet. They wanted to do a MOU. It happened pretty much at that time while we were going there. And that's why we, you know, did that whole thing. Corp Council said, really don't. But for transparency, we wanted to do it because we thought it's a good thing. It doesn't mean everything happens with hydrogen, but it, you know, going back to what we talked about earlier, if we take the methane and turn that into energy that can run our buses, that's part of a hydrogen economy.
Right. So I guess what I'm trying to get to here is this is not so much about hydrogen as the way that happened, the way the response you got from the community. And so is this Mitch doubling down and saying you would do it that same way again? Did you learn anything from that? Did you feel like,
Sure,
wow,
sure.
it would have been better to actually talk to people first?
Well, and if I had a lot more time, we definitely would have done it differently. Unfortunately, it was one of the things they wanted to do at this conference that we were going to.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'll just share with you, that a lot of people very interested in the moves that you were making towards sustainability, the commitment you were making there, talking, we're just like, yeah, okay, there's some momentum. And that was really hard for a lot of people to take, that incident in particular. Like, wow, nobody's even going to talk to the community, or this isn't going to get brought up in a kind of a reasonable way. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of us in our movement, our environmental and social justice movement, where this has just been like a little bit of a cloud hanging out there, and wanted to give you the chance to speak to that. So thank you very much for taking the time to speak to it.
sure, and like I said, it was a decision to do it versus not put it out and be transparent about it. And unfortunately, like I said, the amount of time we had to rush that to the council.
Well, we would hope then that this is you saying, yeah, there's going to be a lot of instances where there's not time. So how do we handle those instances? Do we err on the side of public trust and accountability, or do we err on the side of get her done?
Well, as you can see, we haven't done any of those since. So it was a lesson to learn. As a new mayor, you learn a lot of things, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect, and probably, when those situations come, and we've had some of those come up, by the way, we've taken the extra time. Unfortunately, we were getting a big award at a conference, and so it wasn't like Mitch Roth saying, hey, let's do this. It was this group saying, hey, let's memorialize this. And when the county signs a contract that obligates it to do something, then generally we go in front of council. But there was no real obligation other than we're willing to learn.
Okay, well, thanks for taking the time to get into it with me, and
I'm always happy to.
To Chuck.
So, Mayor Roth, on another difficult issue is the general plan comprehensive review, which, as we all know, started back in 2015 under the Kenoy administration. Then there was the Kim administration. There was finally a draft that was issued in 2019. It went through public review, went back. Then you came into office. You have a new planning director. There was an update in February of 2022. Concerns were raised about the ability to it was a complete rewrite of the existing plan. So concerns were expressed that we couldn't see what changes were made from the existing plan. And the planning director assured us that the next draft would have more be able to compare and see what changes have been made from the existing plan. However, the plan that was issued in September of 2023 to the public was again another complete rewrite. And again, this time it was online in a software that people found very difficult to navigate. There was a new map that did not list, the changes that had been made. It was sort of seek and find. So at the last county council meeting, you heard from the public that it was virtually impossible to navigate and to make a reasonably informed comment on the general plan. And then we found out at that meeting that Corporation Council is taking the position that the County Council and Planning Commission will not be able to don't have unfettered authority to make changes when the next draft comes out in July. So what are you familiar with all of this? And what?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. So, I've been having conversations. There's a couple of things that people should realize. The people that were working on the plan from 2015 to current are the same people.
Okay.
Except Bethany Morrison just became our director of Office of Sustainability. April Tennant is now working on that. There were some things that it was definitely changed a lot. I hear what you're saying about the Ramsar language. In looking at what Kauai did, because we're not doing this in a, the first one's doing it. Kauai did something very similar. And we felt that it's important that we have a plan that really goes to what the community wants. One of the things that happened when we were bringing it out to the public, we had a date that we wanted to bring it out. And some people said, we need more time. And I thought that was a fair comment, because what I heard from the community is we need to do some things and make sure the public has a voice. I know in conversations, they're trying to take all of the public comments and make sure that people can see what people are commenting on. And so we've continued a couple of times. And I think the reason that we've continued is that we really want to make sure that the public is a part of this and that they're hearing it. So I kind of say this. Right now, it's still a draft. And it's kind of like when you make eggs. You crack the eggs, you put them in the pan, and you say, oh, I'm not going to eat that because it looks all runny and stuff. We still have a plan that has to come back, that the public gets a chance to actively participate in, which they've been doing all along. There's been a lot of changes. You remember that we had COVID, and COVID changed a lot of the way we look at things.
Mhm.
We look at, the way we run this administration, taking sustainability and putting that at, as the key component of our administration. And we think that's where we need to be looking and make sure that there's things that represent our current community. So just to finish that off, it's still a work in progress. And I just ask you to give some time, and we appreciate all of the comments that have gone in and continue to come in.
I have some input on this. I was on the CDP Action Committee in Honokaa, and it felt at times like we were made to be inconsequential. They just said, oh, we don't have any more funding. We can't keep going with these meetings. You're just going to have to do it at the community level. And it seemed like that was such a successful program. You got input from the community, and then that input filtered into the general plan. Why was there a change in the way that was handled? It seemed like it was quite successful.
Yeah, I remember that happening. I'm not 100%. There's a lot of things that I have to have my grips around, and I don't have a complete, great, honest answer that I could give you at this time.
So following up with that, Mayor Roth, so can you provide some assurance to us that, because the representation that was made by Corporation Counsel at the county council meeting, again, was that the planning commissions, the Leeward and Windward planning commissions, and the county council are not going to have unfettered authority to make changes to the draft that comes out in July. If that's true, then why would are the public comments going to be, how are any additional comments and requests for changes made by the public going to be manifested if the planning commissions and the county council, who is actually making the law, are limited in their authority? So will you be able to explore that and come back to us to explain?
I'd be happy to do that. And I've actually had some conversations, and quite frankly, it may come for another round of the public, as painful as that may seem. I think, there's been a lot of really good comments that the community has made. And, you know, throughout my career working with the community, I always find it's, you know, sometimes you have to go fast, but it's, you get things done quick, but you go farther if you go together.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And now we're going to move on to the rapid fire segment of the interview because we only have a few minutes left and all you get to say is yes or no. Are you ready, Mitch?
I'm ready.
You're ready. Okay, now that Hoohonua Power Purchase Agreement has been denied by the State Public Utilities Commission, and that decision was twice upheld by the state Supreme Court, is your administration now willing to accept these decisions and act in accordance with them?
Like, we'll act in accordance with the law.
Okay. So no more permits and no more permitting and working with Hoohonua on
So yeah,
construction.
I got to answer this question because a lot of people don't realize when people come for a permit, the job of the department is to determine if what is asking to be built is in compliance with the law. That is their job, to determine if it is in compliance with the law. When you go to the planning commissions, the planning commission has a little bit more leeway to say, you know, this is how we feel it shouldn't be done. But when people come for a permit, if we don't follow the law, we open ourselves up to lawsuits. So if the law says you can't issue them a permit, then we won't issue them a permit. But that's, you're asking a question that's a little bit different than I think what you think you're asking. You're asking, can you tell them not to do it?
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm saying if they don't have the authority to sell power, then why are they building a power plant? And why is the county allowing them and going along with the idea of them building a power plant when they don't have the authority to sell that power?
Well, so getting a permit to build it safely, according to the law, and sell power are two different things.
Yes, there definitely are two.
And so the department has to focus on the designs versus what the use is. They may not ever get permission to use it. And for them to build is very expensive, but the departments have to follow the law. And that's what I think oftentimes people miss, because they think it should be a feeling. It should be, you know, taking a stance. And, you know, unfortunately, that's not the way the law works. I mean, it's possible that council can say, if it can't be used, you can't build it, but that's not what the law says.
Okay, off to you, Chuck.
So there are two final questions. I'll throw them both out to you. The first one will be the easier one. Will your administration support the solar farm projects currently being proposed that will bring in over 200 megawatts of clean energy to our county for a fraction of the cost? In other words, we were discussing Hoohonua, but we already know that there are applications before the Public Utilities Commission that would bring in 200 megawatts of energy along with 80 megawatts of battery firm energy. Will your administration be actively supporting those projects?
It depends on where they are. And I say that because I went down to Ocean View and met with a community that does not want the solar farms as they're designed in their community to be built for safety reasons and for other reasons. And in talking to the people that worked on the laws that allow that to happen, it was not really the intent of what was happening. Am I going to actively support that? Probably not. The community down there is definitely against it. Are there other places where we're going to support? Absolutely. And we've been very supportive, making sure that we have them.
I believe you're talking about the Hawaii ranchos, and you're right, that was a bad idea. Everybody agrees with that, but there are projects that would be, single area, rather than trying to intersperse in between homes and whatnot. So the last,
Let me just say, we are very supportive of green energy
okay.
in all forms.
Did you want to ask the last question, Christine?
Sure. Will you be keeping Zendo current as your planning director?
That really not appropriate for me to talk about in an open forum.
Okay, so I'll start by being the first person to thank you for participating and for being so willing to go along with this, and then even to get involved in a little bit of back and forth. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mayor Rotham, I very much appreciate you answering the questions and sharing your knowledge and being very open and honest about what you know and what you don't know and what you're willing to do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to both our interviewers, Chuck and Christine. HuliPAC, we're building something the political establishment never seen before, and that's a slate of Pono leaders. For more information, please visit our website. That's hulihigh.com, HULIHI.com. And please, everybody, get out and vote. That's the most important thing you can do right now, is to vote. So with that, I'm going to close out this meeting. And
thank you, Jeff, for hosting the meeting, and
thank you guys
as well.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.